CEO, COG, and the PJ ELC to allow me to adopt the protocols that have been elaborately set out by those who have spoken before me. I think looking at them, the request has been granted. But it would be remiss of me, really, if I did not recognize our host governor, Governor Aishani, for your warm welcome. It would also be remiss of me if I equally did not recognize my long-term friend and mentor, Professor Nyong'o, with whom we spent quite some time at the university and in civil society, in the trenches, which finally overthrew the one-party dictatorship and gave Kenyans the 2010 constitution, which we celebrate. Not to be forgotten is Dr. Wilberforce Otichilo, governor of Vihiga. I and Dr. Otichilo come from very far. Actually, I met Dr. Otichilo when I was a consultant for the then Kenya Wildlife Service. He was already working with the climate issues, so he did not just start when he became governor. And Dr. Otichilo, you remember that I and Professor Kibwana drafted the Wildlife Management Act, which was only recently revised. Now, having said that, let me also recognize the PS, Dr. Ngeno. From your speech and from what I have heard said about you, you are a man who is passionate about matters environment. And we appreciate that as the judiciary. Now, Bwana PJ, let me tender the apology by the Honorable, the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, who actually is supposed to have been the chief guest and who would have given the keynote address. She was supposed to be here this morning, but for reasons beyond her control, she simply couldn't make it to this venue. And therefore, she told me to tender her apology in that regard. But she has assured me that she will join us virtually tomorrow, which means, therefore, that the burden of making a speech on her behalf has been removed from me, because she will make it virtually. And I think that will also help us save on the remaining time. And therefore, let me just also acknowledge the fact that the critical role of this court in matters land use, climate change, and environment has been acknowledged quite elaborately. And when history is written, Professor Nyong'o, about this court, which so far remains the only environment and land court on our continent, it shall become very clear that I played a very fundamental role in its birth and establishment, because I think it would not be wrong if I stood here like I've done and state that 70% of the judges of this court were beneficiaries of my wisdom at the university. Now, isitoshe, when the Constitution of 2010 came into being, I was tasked as a member of the then Judicial Service Commission, with interviewing and recommending for appointment the first 15 judges of the court. And so you can see that my role in terms of nurturing this court started even before it was established. And therefore, I feel nostalgic. And that's why when I became director and then later Director General of the Kenya Judiciary Academy, I made it my task to always support whatever requests that would come from the PJ in terms of facilitating a continuing education of the judges of this court. And that I have done. And I shall continue to do that because continuing education of judges and magistrates is no longer a choice. It is a constitutional imperative. So that even when people say we are spending a little bit more time in training than in sitting in court, they don't know what they're talking about. We are simply living to the constitutional imperative, which says that a good judge must be a learning judge, must be a thinking judge. And that's the only way we shall generate the type of jurisprudence that our governors are exhorting us to generate. And therefore, I can assure you that as long as I remain in that position, I'll continue supporting the training ambitions of this court. We have agreed in our prior discussions with the PJ, and I think, Dr. Otichilo, you were in that sitting this morning, that this training could not have come at a better time for ourselves because of the matters that have been highlighted by those who have spoken. And we have agreed that after the ELC judges go through this training, we shall escalate it. We shall cascade it and escalate it so that other courts, including the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, also undergo similar training so that the benefits that we gain as the Environment and Land Court do not get lost when the disputes that you may have decided find their way to the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court. So